Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Breifne Earley and you are listening to Kiss My Arts here on the podcast. And we're looking at two very different things today, but both revolving around teas, coffees, baked goods, and kind of connected in that way. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking to Val Robus about the Havin A Laugh charity, who do a social coffee morning every month in Carrick and Shannon. But first, we're going to talk to someone who's been featured a lot on the show without actually been on the show before. They get mentioned every time we talk about great initiatives happening across the county. And that is Jinnys Tea Rooms, Jinnys Bakery, and the whole Jinnys brand. And now joining me to talk about all of that is Pascal Gillard. Pascal, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on, Breifne.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for coming into us to have a conversation. We had your good wife, Sinead, or Jinny, as she's better known, where the brand comes from, on the show back in the first week or two that we were on air. You might remind us just a little bit about Jinnys and where it all comes from.
Yeah, so Jinnys started in 2003. Sinead had come back after some travelling, and she was taking over this self-catering cottages that we run there, Maguire's self-catering cottages, and she just needed to boost the income in the off-season. So she was quite strong in the restaurant that they're running for over 20 years on the pastry side and the baking side. So a friend of hers convinced her to put a few bread into the local shop and see how it goes. And she didn't want anybody knowing who was behind it, so she decided to call it Jinnys, her family nickname. In case it went belly up, nobody would know who whose business had failed. So Jinny stuck, the brand stuck, the business grew week by week from 16 loaves in the first week to we're probably doing 4,000 or 5,000 a week now between scones, cakes, breads, etc. So yeah, it's 16 years, going into its 17th year in business now, and quite a bit of innovation has taken place since the 16 loaves baked in the first week, you know.
So in the last year or two, it's been an overnight sensation, basically, but with 15 years of preparation gone into it. Yeah. You've been building over the last 2 decades, as you mentioned, and I suppose it first came to my attention maybe 5 or 10 years ago when it started appearing on the shelves of Tesco and all of these other big companies. What has it been like to watch the company develop from that embryonic stage to where it is today?
Yeah, you need to be patient, you know. Sometimes you think you're more ready for the next step than you actually are. You know, people assume also that when you are with the bigger multiples that you've made it. In fact, in some cases, you're putting yourself under more pressure and you have more stress than you had when you were smaller. But, you know, thanks to the assistance we've had from the local enterprise board here in Leitrim and Leader, you know, it has given us kind of the confidence to go to the next level, because you do need quite big equipment to be able to supply the bigger hotels and the bigger multiples and stuff. But we've also realised that the bigger equipment doesn't answer all your questions. We've a mixer that can mix 120 loaves at a time, but we only use that mixer to dry mix the product. So basically blend the seeds and the raisin agent and the flours. We still actually mix the wet ingredients into that by hand. So we've scaled back the quantity that we're mixing at a time to make the product more consistent. So it's been interesting to see the changes that have taken place since. As you say, it didn't happen overnight. A lot of thought has gone into it, and you know, we've managed to scale it up a little bit and expand when we were ready to. So we actually saved money to buy equipment. We didn't always go into big debt to buy the equipment. We bought it when we felt we were ready. And, you know, sometimes we had the contracts or the possible contracts before we had the equipment. I don't know what's the best decision, but the last thing you want is spending 30,000 on a machine that, you know, you're not sure you're going to be able to, you know, make it fulfill its potential.
Isn't that Richard Branson's thing, though? Say yes and then work out how to do it afterwards.
Well, it's our attitude with a lot of things. We get the product right first and then we cost it. And I mean, some people would say that's the wrong model, but when you're small scale like ourselves, you know, the quality of your product and the consistency of your product is key. So there are products that we have developed in the bakery that have never made it to the shop because the ingredients that we're putting into it are quite expensive. And by the time the margin of 30% is put onto them, it makes it very expensive in the shops. And maybe if we were in the more affluent areas, you know, it might sell. But, we just say, okay, that one mightn't just make it. We won't push that one, but we know we've a good product, So not everything makes it to the shop, but a lot of the time it's down to the cost. So we always get the taste right, the product right, have it as clean label as possible, and then see if we can make it from there,
Now, I suppose people are listening to this for the arts show, and we're talking a bit about business, but the reason why I wanted to talk to you today on the arts show was because we talk about all creative aspects, and whether it's a singer or a musician or a filmmaker, making a loaf of bread is in itself an art form. To produce it to the certain quality and how it tastes, how it looks, how it's packaged, it's very creative.
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind the whole thing as well. I mean, you have to remember, I don't come from a baking background. My mum was a home ec teacher, but I never did any of the baking. But I sure did know the tastes, and I knew home baking, from getting it on the table at home. That did help. When we make something and trial something, I kind of feel we're very strong on knowing whether the public will like it, because our taste buds are quite well developed at this stage when it comes to baking. But like anybody can make a soda bread, but not everybody can make it well. So, getting back to the original point earlier about all the equipment, we found that the bigger mixer was over mixing the product. So we knew to pull back and to mix it by hand. So we mightn't be able to supply all of Ireland or England or wherever, but certainly wherever our product goes, we'll know it will be made to the best of our potential, and we'll be happy to stand behind it. And you can kind of do that when you're smaller, and you can change things as well during the whole process as well. If you're not happy, you can change it when you're smaller, But in saying that, like when I say small, we're supplying Kilronan Castle, Lochrin, Galway Bay, the Shirt and the Hudson, the Great Southern Killarney, so the Morrison in Dublin. We're in an awful lot of the big places, And sometimes when you look at your listing, you say, my God, look where we've come from. This is great. But it's staying there is the key.
Do you revise the creative side of that in terms of contents or ingredients over time, or are you at that stage now where you've got your stables?
Yeah, we would be using the same ingredients and a lot of the same suppliers that we did in 2003. We might be buying the flour in a bigger bag, but apart from that, it's the same ingredients. And once you have a nutritional analysis done on a product, you have to stay with the same, or else you have to go to the cost of getting it recalibrated for that. But we've, thought outside the box too in terms of the products, the range of products we're doing. I did a lot of test baking with French bakers. So we're making sourdough now that our French customers that come to the self-catering cottages feel that it's as good as 70% of the bakeries in France. And I mean, we'll accept that compliment because France, especially a sourdough bread or sourdough baguette, I mean, it's a must in France that you buy a baguette every day, and they know their quality when it comes to baguettes. And we've got great first-hand comments from our French visitors to say that our baguette is up there with, the best of them in France.
But there must be an expectation when they hear your name, when they see your name written down as Pascal Gillard, there must be some sense of having French blood in there somewhere.
There's an expectation, but when they hear me trying to talk French, they know I'm from Sligo. But after a few whiskies with them, my French does improve. But no, we have some good fun with our French visitors. We love the French race. It's a brilliant culture, and it's very foodie as well. I mean, we sell a lot of carrot cakes to France. Most of the French people going back, that's one of the things, that they have to bring back with them. It's carrot cake. And now it's the few new products we developed, the granola. It's stuff you think that they would have, because patisserie and chocolate, cakes and gâteaux, all that is very, very popular in France. But to think we have a cake here that they don't have, that they want to have, we've sold our stout bread over in France as well at markets over there through a contract. So, we've been trying and seeing what, like somebody said to me, there's no point, trying to get into a market unless they like the product, and they don't eat our soda bread, but they like the Guinness bread, they like the sweeter breads as well,
In terms of, you mentioned the sourdough and you mentioned the stout bread, and I know variations of those are now available on the shelves in those pouches because of your participation in the Food Academy Super Value initiative. Tell us a bit about the Food Academy and what impact that's had on your, I suppose, creation aspect, but also on your business and your branding.
Yeah, you'd imagine for a business that's going 16 years, they wouldn't learn much about dealing with the multiples at this stage. But the Enterprise Board encouraged us to take part in the Food Academy program. I think it's maybe 7 or 8 years in existence now, and I never went for it. And I did last year, decided, okay, I'll see what I can learn from this program. And I learned a huge amount. It's a pity I hadn't gone in 2003, or pity it wasn't available in 2003, because I would have learned a lot of stuff quicker and made less mistakes. But a brilliant program. I knew what I wanted out of the program. I knew I wanted to bring new lines. We were already selling granola to the hotels. The Guinness bread mix we had tried already in France, and it worked. We had given it as presents to people in England and America, and it worked. But we hadn't got a nice packaging over the line. And when you're working in a bakery, as a baker, as a delivery, covering holidays, it's hard to bring new stuff, to fruition. I mean, we were close to it and we knew what type of packs we wanted. But the Food Academy program really, it was like going back to school. They were kind of putting a little bit of pressure on you. You had X amount to have done for your next meeting. And yeah, we got it over the line. And in fact, the packaging, the pouch that we used, it was done by a company in Wicklow called Alert Packaging, and they liked the design so much that they entered into a competition of theirs. Now, this was a graphics competition, flexi-graphic competition, and it won. And they sent us a bottle of champagne with our name on the bottle as a thank you for allowing them to put our product forward, or our package forward, for their competition. So it was a nice little bit of kudos to get from the company, to think that of all the packs they put through their printers in that year, they picked our pack of granola as an entry into the competition. And they were runner-up last year and they won it this year, so they were over the moon. But I suppose the Food Academy program, getting back to your question, the thing it made you realise was the importance of branding. And we spent 2,000 on a guy to design a logo. It seems like a crazy amount of money, but where we were at with our, name and stuff, and the Jinny was becoming like Jimmy, and I was replacing Jinny because everyone was calling, "Are you Jimmy?" So we wanted to clear up the brand name. Jinny was kind of a popular product locally, but people were starting to call it Jimmy. So we changed the font. We gave it to a graphic designer, a food graphic designer, and he did a lot. We were really happy with what came back, and we loved the logo. And then, in fact, when we were setting up the tea room, we used a similar font and a similar style logo for the tea room. So we felt that all of a sudden our branding had lifted, and that all came through the Food Academy program. My labels for the breads were all nearly running out. So then we changed over the logo. So the timing was quite good. It wasn't all a great plan, but it just worked, And I was a bit reluctant initially to get a new logo done. But I think that was the best decision I made last year. So it's funny how things can happen,
No, it's funny because the branding, and what I've noticed over the last 12 months is that it's very consistent. So now you see your product on the shelf, you know exactly where it's come from. You drive by the tea rooms, you stop for a coffee or whatever it might be in a tea room, which is quite ironic.
Yeah.
But you stop for a bite to eat in the tea rooms at Acres Lake, and it's the same. You know exactly where you are, and the association is there as well. Yeah. Talk to us about the tea rooms, because that came on stream early summer last year. Yeah,
we started the tea rooms in June, but look, we thought about a tea room there for so long. You see, our business is, a lot of people didn't realise what was going on behind the cottage gates as such. We have a French angling business where we do a full board package. So we were using the building which had been the restaurant in the 80s, 20 years. We were still using that building for the French anglers who come for 18 weeks in the year. They come for the fishing season in the springtime and in the autumn time. But the building was empty for the rest of the year. It was just storing whatever needed to be stored for the summer months. And it was sitting there. It was a no-brainer that we could knock a lot more out of that building. But we did like the idea of the tea room. We knew we'd be strong on the bread side of it, and the pastry side of it. And what more do you need in a tea room? Good coffee and maybe a bit of ice cream. So, yeah, we thought we were going to have a very small menu, that we would initially start off with scones and cakes, and that'd be it, teas and coffees. And then as we researched what was out there and got further into it, we have quite a big menu now, bigger than Sinead had ever planned to have. And still people would probably think we should have more on it, but we are a tea room, and Sinead is always trying to get that point across. You're not going to have your Sunday lunch in the tea room, but what you will have will be nice. And, so we started that in June, but the research went into that, the previous 12 months. And with the great assistance of Leader, it allowed us to finish the tea rooms to a very high standard. So we've good, it's wheelchair accessible, good parking, very comfortable seats, good coffee machine, But I think you can have all of those things. If you don't have good staff to run it, you're not going to make success. And we have an abundance of talent in Drumshanbo. The younger generation coming through there would make you very proud, and very confident that our own kids are going to grow up to be very rounded and confident individuals. When you see what 17 and 16 and 18-year-old girls are capable of, our big fear was the coffee, and how are we going to, and we don't know anything about coffee, and people are so particular about coffee. And after one day's training, the girls just took to it like a duck to water, So,
it's mad, because I suppose the first thing you do when you do the roster every week is take a look at when St. Francis ladies are playing, because I think nearly every single one of the girls, bar one or two sisters that I won't name because they'll kill me, everyone else seems to play on that team. So how does that affect the day-to-day running of the place?
Not alone had we 5 of the team, we also had the selector as well, Gareth. So there was one Sunday where we were down quite a few staff, but our own kids got on board. Some cousins were down for a reunion that weekend, but of course anyone that comes to our place gets a job. So it was great. We got through it, and we felt, my God, that was early in the season, for our own season. And they won the match. It was a final. They all stopped outside the tea room on the way back with the cup. We were delighted. They were delighted that we let them go to the game. But sure, I grew up playing football. I knew what the game meant to the girls. We were never going to stop them going to the game. But they're so good. You couldn't stop them from doing what they're worth to you for the rest of the year versus an odd Sunday here and there. And they did their very best to get games changed to suit us, But look, it was a good result in the end. We're not going to avoid taking footballers on board anymore because of that. But that's a challenge you have, when you're working weekends. We start on a Thursday, so we start getting busy when everyone else starts winding down. Lots of people look forward to Thursday because it's close to Friday. We start dreading it because we know it's ahead of us. So it's a big challenge being open on a weekend, bringing up a family, on the site as well. The kids coming in, can you bring me to football? Can you bring me here? You've all those things to juggle. But we're doing, we're one season in almost, or half a season in anyway. And we feel that we'll be more efficient next year as well at it. We won't be as stressed maybe, or, Sinead certainly was very nervous opening the tea room because there was a high expectation that it would be good because the brand is strong, the breads are good. So we'd like to think that, there's good word gone out about Jinny's tea room, It's very new. But the one thing that I suppose people will realise is that we're going to do our best to have it as good every day. And, we're not going to open if we're not ready to be open. We're going to have it right. It won't be served unless it's right. You're not going to please everybody's taste buds. And the very first day we opened, somebody didn't like our Caesar salad. But, everyone has different taste buds. And we appreciate that, and we take it on board, and you change things around, and it'll be nicer the next time for that person maybe, or
maybe it'll teach me not to order the Caesar salad in the future.
Well, I'd encourage you to order the Caesar salad because I think it's amazing, but it's everybody has a choice. There's a good menu there, so I think our signature dish is probably the mushrooms with the Madeira sauce. That's a very popular dish in the morning, but yeah, we're happy with what we've created here. It's been quite successful. Look, there's huge costs involved, huge labour costs involved in running it. And Drumshanbo can be, a great town in the summer, but it's a quiet town in the winter. So December was a struggle. There was nobody around. Everybody was gone to the bigger towns shopping. But I'm just coming from the tea room now, and it's Friday. It's full of locals out there. That's great to have that in the summer or in the winter time, the off season. That keeps you going until the tourists start coming back.
Especially given the location is a little bit out of town, so it's the fact that you've got parking. Plus, it's a nice little stroll out along the banks of the canal, out to yourselves, and maybe on or maybe back to the town. It's quite nice. We've kind of run out of time, Pascal.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for coming into us. I know we're going to chat to you more because specifically with your branding later on in the year, because you have a new website and a new social media presence and everything. It's kind of, you put a lot of work into that in the off season in the winter, and I'm looking forward to kind of digging down into that with you, so our listeners can probably find out a bit more about maybe some of the mistakes that you are making that you've tightened up on or that you've got help on with that as well. So I look forward to that conversation. But to all the success so far with the bakery, with the tea rooms, and I suppose with the rebranding, we'll get into that later in the year as well, with the self-catering as Jinnys rather than Maguire's. I know is coming on stream too, so it all seems very positive for the Gillard Maguire clan at Acres Lake.
Thank you very much, Breifne. Thanks for having me on.
Now, on the programme, a couple of months back, we had a chat with Val Robus about Havin A Laugh, a monthly get-together for people who just want to get out of the house and, I suppose, cheer themselves up a little bit and be surrounded by nice, positive people and get into the one room and just maybe have a laugh, have a cry, whatever they want to do. But it's all to do with mental health charity. And Val Robus joins me again now to talk about... Let's talk a bit about the charity first and the events and promote that, and then we'll talk about maybe the new project that the group are working on. Val, welcome back to the programme.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me again. So the Havin A Laugh was firstly the social coffee mornings. I started them because I was suffering very badly with mental health and depression, and I didn't really know where to turn to. So someone through my blog had suggested contacting Havin A Laugh and see, what they do. And actually they send you vouchers if you're in any kind of mental health counselling, and it's for something that you want to do. So they sent me a voucher for a seaweed bath, and off I went. And I found that at the time I was so in the whole counselling mode and I needed something else, and Havin A Laugh were there, and there was no pressure and there was no kind of stigma. They were just there. So when I was going through it all, my friends went to the wayside. That I just think maybe that happens. But I really missed having a coffee with someone, just having a chat about the weather, about, what are you up to? So I started the coffee mornings over 2 years ago now in Sligo, the first one. And then 200 people turned up to the first one, which didn't do a lot for my anxiety. But anyway, sure, we went with it. And they're still running on the first Monday of every month. And then last year, we started running Leitrim in our happy place in Carrick and Shannon. And we had about, I suppose, 25 to 30 people turn up to that one.
Self-included?
Yes, yourself included. And it was really lovely. It's very informal. People just have a chat. You get to know people that you might not have met before. And I have to say, Caitlin in our happy place was amazing. She provided cakes and, she didn't have to do that. And her and her mum, they're just lovely people. So anyway, that's kind of the basics of the coffee morning. But the Havin A Laugh charity, what they do is they look after Sligo and the surrounding counties, so Leitrim, Mayo, Donegal, Roscommon. If you're in mental health counselling, they will provide vouchers for up to €175, and it's for a life-enhancing experience. So say if you want to go surfing or something that will take you out of that place that you're in and give you like an hour's break or just something different. So it's whatever you feel like doing, as energetic or as not, as you like. And maybe, when you're in that place, maybe you can't afford to do these things. So that's where they come in. And it's really lovely. It's a very different charity. And I love that about them. And they're very welcoming.
It sounds great. So I suppose to put it in the mindset of, because people will be looking at going, but what does surfing have to do with depression? But really, it's getting outside of that,
it's
rut that you're in, that pattern of negative behaviour.
Exactly. And that for me, that was the hardest thing, because I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to stay in bed all day. I'll be perfectly honest. And I'm a photographer background, and the camera sat in its bag for 2 years. I didn't have the mindset to go and take photos. And then they said to me, you know, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't really know. I didn't want to do anything. But they said, well, you know, do you like seaweed baths? I said, yes. So they sent me a voucher, and off I went for the seaweed bath. And funny enough, I took the camera with me. It just happened, the weather was lovely. I went for a walk. I started taking photos. That was almost the first step to the recovery, to show me that there was something outside of my four walls, outside of my head, because I was living in my head. And it just kind of gave me, you know, it just showed me there was something else. There was a charity that cared about people without saying, you know, go for counselling or talk to somebody, because at the time I was all talked out. And I was like, I felt if I had to go to another session of counselling or go through it all again, I wasn't able to do it. So there was no pressure. And funny enough, when I came out of the seaweed bath, I bumped into Breifne. It's her charity. And I just said to her, do you know, I think you've saved me. And, you know, she didn't, like she probably didn't know where I was coming from, but I honestly do think that they probably did save me. So, you know, I'm so grateful to them.
So, of course, the event, or the social coffee mornings, happen in Carrick and Shannon on the 2nd of the month, the second Monday of every month, so, 10 to 12.
Yeah, so the next one is on the 10th of February, and it's lovely because our Happy Place don't actually open on a Monday, but they're opening specially for us, and they've said that they will carry on running it for us, because sometimes, you know, a lot of us are based in Sligo. I actually work in Leitrim, so it's not too bad for me, but they'll carry on and run it. And, you know, it's just so nice to go and sit with people. You know, you can walk in on your own and someone will smile. You know, you can just come and join in a chat where, you know, it's hard to kind of do that.
Tell us where the Sligo event is as well, because some people in the north of the county, that might be more, logistically, might be more accessible for them.
The Sligo one's in the Blind Tiger, and it's on the first, the Blind Tiger is actually in the car park, the Stephen Street car park.
Just along the Garavogue.
Yeah, along the Garavogue. And actually, I kind of picked the places. I picked the places myself. The Blind Tiger, I picked because when I was suffering from anxiety, I had to see into a place before I walked into it. So the Blind Tiger has a lot of windows, and it also has 2 doors. So there was an escape route, because I used to spend a lot of my time escaping from things. So when I started them up, I did it so people could see in. They could also see out. They knew exactly what they were walking into, because that's quite a hard thing to do when you're not in the right frame of mind, is walk into a room you don't know what's the other side of the door. So that's the first Monday of every month, and it's from 10 till 12. And, you know, people can just turn up. There'll be somebody there to say hello to them and maybe introduce them to a few people. You don't have to stay for the full 2 hours. You can just, you know, I mean, there was one man, and it took him about 6 months to actually come over to us. He would come every Monday, but he wasn't in the right frame of mind, and that's fine. You know, we want people to feel comfortable.
Excellent. So the first Monday of the month in Sligo on the Blind Tiger, and the second Monday in our Happy Place here in Carrick and Shannon. So that's if people are interested in coming along and finding out more about what they do. And obviously it's a social morning, but there's a little fund for the charity as well on those.
You don't have to give a donation. I mean, what we do, the way we do it now, is everybody pays for their own coffees. And there is a jar there, but you know, if you can't afford it, that's fine. But there'll be leaflets there to tell you more about the charity, and if you want to avail of their services, how you can avail of them. And we also have a mailing list that you can sign up to, and everything is online. There's the website. There's also a Facebook page. So the events are up on the Havin A Laugh Facebook page.
Excellent. Now, the reason we have you here today for Kiss My Arts, because this isn't really in the arts world yet. An idea was born in Carrick and Shannon last month's meeting. How did that go, and what exactly are we talking about here? Well,
we're going to bring out a book, and I'm very excited about it. It's like my baby, this. So I had to keep it quiet for a while till we sort of finalised details, but I'm kind of raring to go with it. We were sitting in our Happy Place in December, and we were just all telling funny stories, and then it just came up, wouldn't this be a great idea for a book? Because there are a lot of self-help books out there, and there are a lot of books about mental health, but I think when you're suffering, you have to have a bit of a sense of humour about it. And while it doesn't, what we're looking for really, I suppose, to go back to basics, we've got an open call. So anybody can submit a story, a poem, jokes, a photo, an illustration, whatever they feel like. But we're looking at the lighter side of life. It doesn't have to be about mental health. It's just maybe a story that makes you smile or laugh, so that if people aren't feeling great, they can pick up this book. They can just read for a few minutes. It would be short pieces. And then it might just make them feel a bit better. So the front cover is going to be, I took a photo of a smiling donkey. So that's going to be the front cover. And then we're already getting submissions, which is fantastic. And it doesn't have to be a funny story that happened to you. It could be something that you've just made up. It really doesn't matter. We're open to anything.
So fact or fiction, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't
Get it down
matter.
on paper and send it to you. How do people get in touch?
We have an email address just set up for the book. So it's book.havinalaugh, that's having without the G, at gmail.com.
It's always awkward when you have to spell out things, but no, there's no G in the name of the charity. So it's Havin apostrophe
A Laugh. Yeah.
So book.havinalaugh@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Is there a deadline?
The first deadline we've picked is April Fool's Day, just kind of keeping in with the light-hearted thing. And we're also hoping to have a couple of workshops in March to help people maybe if they want to learn more about writing. And we're hoping to get some coaches on board that will kind of talk them through it. And then there'll be different opportunities, but that's kind of the first deadline. We're not expecting to have everything kind of finalise them.
Don't tell people that or they'll keep pushing it.
Yeah, true.
First of April.
We need them in now. No, we're getting submissions already, and then we'll take it from there, really. So, but it probably will be handier if people want to do the writing course first.
I presume, just to save yourselves a lot of hassle down the road, there is going to be some sort of quality control on this. It's not going to be a case of,
no,
it will be edited.
It will be edited. There has to be, really, because I suppose we know what we want, but also we're kind of looking. I find sometimes things take their own way, and organically it will go in the direction it wants to go in. But we have an editor that comes to one of the coffee mornings. He doesn't know it yet, but he's in my sights. And then I think Breifne, who runs the charity, knows maybe another editor that might give us a hand, because I suppose when you're in it, you're very close to it. So it would be great to get outside opinions from people that would know more about writing than we do, and what works and what doesn't. So yeah, it's really exciting. I'm very excited about it.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming in to have a chat with us.
Million.
I love what your group do in terms of the service that you provide, because it is a service, even though it's free and it's complimentary and it's just a social thing. It's just that opportunity for people to get out of the house. It might be, for some people, as you mentioned, the guy in Sligo, it might be their only time in the month where they get out of the house and go to something and mix and talk to people. And it's vital that people have that opportunity in their lives. So thank you very much for the idea and for where it's progressed to. And I think this book is going to be fabulous.
Hopefully now. And as I say, if anyone wants to get in touch, they're quite welcome. A lot of us have been in the same position. There's no judgment. So we're all very friendly and welcoming. So
if they look up Havin A Laugh online, or that email address, book.havinalaugh@gmail.com.
Yeah, and there's a lot more. I've written a lot more from a personal point of view on my blog page. So my blog is magnumlady.com, and that you'll see the smiling donkey. And if you'll click on that, you'll see a bit of the background of how I joined the charity and what they did for me, and how they can help other people.
Excellent.
So that's great. Thanks very much. Thanks.
And that, folks, is all we have time for today. A massive thank you to both Val Robus and Pascal Gillard of Jinny's Bakery and Tea Rooms for coming in and having a conversation with me today for Kiss My Arts. We will be back tomorrow with the sports roundup, and of course next Sunday we'll be back with another episode of Kiss My Arts. We are always on the look for people to come in and have a chat with us, so if you're involved in the creative arts in any way, shape or form in the county, do please get in touch. You'll find us on all of the usual social media outlets, whether it's Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. Just search for Leitrim Daily and you will find us. Or also our email is info@leitrimdaily.com. We'd love to hear from you, and whatever you may be up to, whether it's in the literary world, in music, in performance, or in that kind of creative that we spoke about today with Pascal, with food or with wood or whatever it might be, do reach out and get in touch. We'd love to hear from you and feature whatever it is you're involved in on the show. Thank you very much for listening in, and I will talk to you tomorrow.